Hello again and welcome to BUS591 Corporate Risk and Crime, Managing Corporate Risk and Crime, Lecture 321/22, Semester 1. Today we're going to look at the assessment and techniques and responses following our lectures. We looked at the impact and how it affects everybody last week, and also we had a quick chat about the assignment. But this week we're going to take it further forward, and we're going to look at it and say what our position is in the fundamentals of risk management and what we're going to do to say and how it's developing and how it is changing in the light of the 21st century. So we can do that by identifying some of the areas that we're looking at and by identifying and implementing effective parts of programs to respond to what it's going to do. So the first two lectures we've had, and if there's anything there you don't understand, please come back to me. I'll come in early next week, again room B118, the lecture theatre, and I can try and answer those questions to you. Or again, you can put the questions at the end of our session and we can look at it as a group person and a group member. So don't be frightened to come forward and combine the lecture notes I've loaded onto Moodle, which I'll go through again, but also from a different perspective, and make it more of a tutorial than you reading my different notes and listening to the progress that we're making. So we recognised the risks and we rated them and determined their significance last week and the week before, and we looked at some organisations and we looked at examples whereby there's been high risks, particularly in the retailing sector. And we analysed that in detail, and we talked about the different priorities and the areas that made us make different decisions. And it's in the assessment of those decisions that we look at the significance of each individual risk and how it does impact upon it. And one of the features of business and what it can do in terms of the objectives of the profitability of the business, and where the stakeholder expectations are, where the shareholder expectations are, where the board expectations are, and also the individuals and the employees. And as the customer says, we will start this process and then we'll look at the assessments at the current level and at the level that is going to be when we get involved in the different kinds of risk assessment that we need to make. And when we've made that assessment, we can take it forward and put in a technique that's going to be responsive to it. And we look at feeding the information through from the lower end of the business, i.e. the whistleblower, as we know, heard of so many times now, and the advantages of using the different approaches, either by forensic accounting, whistleblowers, or reading the newspapers, or gossip, to make sure that we are aware of what the risk management and what the understanding of it is, and how we can evaluate the seriousness of that risk. So it's very simple. The enterprise is there, and it's there for an organisation. And we hope everybody within the enterprise is going to be genuine and working towards its significant goals. And the strategy of risk management is capable of making it work in both internally and externally. So the organisation you come from, it can be where the decisions are made at the top or at the bottom. And now we have corporate governance coming in to say, well, hold on, I don't think you should do this. And then we have the direct managers who can complain, or they can go to the board, or they can become a whistleblower and go to the press. So we see lots of examples of these kind of things going on, and we know how to handle them, and we know what the risk is, and we're going to forecast on the people who are committing the crime, either intentionally or by error. And so we're aware of what's going on. Sometimes it's necessary to take a risk and not disclose what's going on in the hope that it gets better and has corrected itself. Sometimes the best risk and the best fault or the best loss is the first. Otherwise it gets bigger and bigger and the rest gets more and more difficult to handle, and you invariably cross the red line and it becomes a crime as you try to save yourself, the company or your family or the project or whatever you're working on. And I've been in a lot of those situations where the responsibility has to be delegated, because then new risks will emerge which are far bigger than the original ones. So you need to know your counterparts in the hierarchy, your line management of who you can go to, and how it affects other organisations both within the industry and without the area that you're operating in. So this is all very difficult in terms of carrying it forward and analysing it in terms of the techniques and how to implement and what our responses should be. Should they be genuine? Should they be curtailed? Or should we let them run, laissez-faire? Or should we take decisions and stop it or not do it? And what are the repercussions in doing that? So the people who are aware of this more and more are those on the shop floor, I believe, because there you have a mass of people all working in different areas, and at the top you have a board, particularly with international companies. They don't know what's going on in some of these subsidiaries, in some of these overseas countries, in some of these different areas that they're operating in. The multinationals or multi-business companies, they can't watch everything. So they have to put in kind of standards that can be adhered to and focus on the individuals who are going to be responsible in that area. So we'll have a look at that and see how that picture all knits together and how we can handle it and how we can bring it to the fore and therefore take it forward. And you saw all the different industries I've been in and the examples I give you when we're talking through them, and they all bring different challenges, different risks, which we have to be aware of as they're always emerging and changing. And they can be operational risks, or they can be risks that you're not aware of, or they can be intentional risks that you've created yourself and don't know how to get rid of them. So we need to look at that and see what the disruption cost is and how much it's going to be to correct it, and then we can take it there and say this technique is going to be the one that resolves it. But the answer may be, don't get in that position. But it may be a situation that you've not brought about. COVID that brought about a lot of companies to their knees and nobody was to blame. But if you can't open because of government restrictions, you have to do something to ameliorate it. Maybe you open very quietly late at night, or maybe you hide that you're open to keep the business going. Is that morally correct or morally wrong? It depends the degree of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So the board of directors, senior managers, and all those are aware of it. And until the furlough scheme came in, people were going out of business because they had no salvation. So they would take bigger risks to keep their businesses going. And that is one of the responses we've seen through COVID, which we will discuss in the lecture. Look forward to seeing you next week. Again, look at the Moodle. Have a look at the lecture before you come along. I'm there from 9 o'clock. You arrive at 10, or we can talk about it in between. Email me. You've got all my details. I'm there to help you and bring it forward. Look forward to seeing you. Bye for now.